Neymar is finished. Or is he? The shocking decision that changed everything. Neymar is finished. Retire before you embarrass yourself. That was the verdict. Just 18 months ago, that was where world football had landed on Neymar Jr., the same player who, a decade earlier, had been expected to inherit the sport itself from Lionel Messi. Clips of Neymar simply jogging during training sessions were going viral. Not because he looked explosive or inspiring, but because thousands of fans were saying exactly the same thing. He's done. Let it go. For many people, the debate wasn't whether Neymar would return. It was whether he should. And then, on May 18th, in Rio de Janeiro, something happened that stunned the football world. The most ruthless and respected manager in modern football walked into a press conference, looked at all the criticism, all the statistics, all the doubts, and made a decision almost nobody expected. He put Neymar on the plane anyway. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then came the announcement. Neymar Jr., convocado. Neymar had been called up. But here's the part that almost every Neymar story this year skipped over. Everyone was arguing about whether Neymar deserved to make Brazil's squad. Almost nobody was asking the far more important question: who was making that decision? Because the man who approved Neymar's return was the last person in football anyone expected to do it. He had already rejected Neymar 3 separate times. He owed him absolutely nothing. And professionally, he is famous for being allergic to sentimentality. Yet somehow, after reviewing all the evidence, all the injuries, all the criticism, and all the failures, he looked at Neymar and said, yes. But only on his terms. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore 3 extraordinary realities. First, the football world may have written Neymar's obituary far too early. Second, the one opinion that truly mattered conducted its own investigation and reached a very different conclusion. And third, Brazil, and perhaps football itself, may have underestimated one of the greatest talents of his generation. Because to understand the significance of this squad announcement, you have to remember just how hopeless Neymar's story had become. By late 2023, this wasn't a comeback story. It was a eulogy. October 2023. Brazil vs Uruguay. A World Cup qualifier. Neymar turned, there was minimal contact, and suddenly, everything collapsed. A torn ACL. A damaged meniscus. At 31 years old, facing a recovery that could take over a year. For many athletes, that injury changes careers. For Neymar, many believed it ended one. Then came the decision that nearly closed the book on his international career forever. He remained at Al Hilal, trying to recover while simultaneously attempting to justify one of the largest contracts in football history. The result? 18 months. 7 appearances. One of the most expensive absences the sport had ever seen. Then, in January 2025, Al Hilal moved on. Neymar returned home to Santos, the club where everything had begun. On paper, it looked like the perfect redemption story. In reality, it became something very different. Santos was struggling. His body refused to cooperate. Hamstring injuries. Muscle problems. Setback after setback. There was even a night in 2025 when Santos suffered a humiliating 6-0 defeat to Vasco da Gama, the one man who owed Neymar nothing, and still said yes. Cold decisions. Brutal phone calls. World-class players left sitting on the bench. Careers altered without hesitation or apology. That's the reputation Carlo Ancelotti built over 4 decades at the highest level of football. And when Brazil made the most controversial appointment in its football history, they didn't choose a Brazilian legend. They chose an outsider. For the first time ever, Brazil handed permanent control of its national team to a non-Brazilian manager. In a country where football exists somewhere between religion and mythology, that decision was seismic. But for Neymar, the implications were even more important. Because the man now deciding his future had spent 40 years proving that reputations mean nothing to him. And perhaps the most important part of this story is the part most people leave out. Carlo Ancelotti did not select Neymar at the first opportunity. He selected him at the last possible one. May 2025. Ancelotti announces his first Brazil squad. Neymar is left out. August 2025. Final World Cup qualifiers. Neymar is left out again. March 2026. The final international window before the World Cup. Neymar is excluded for the third consecutive time. 3 opportunities. 3 rejections. And after that final omission, Ancelotti didn't hide behind diplomatic language. He drew a line. His message was simple. Neymar can go to the World Cup if he is 100%. I didn't call him because he is not 100%. Neymar has to be training and playing. No exceptions. No special treatment. Meet the standard, or stay home. So what changed between March and May? It wasn't a viral highlight reel. It wasn't nostalgia. And it certainly wasn't public pressure. After returning from knee surgery in February, Neymar slowly began rebuilding something far more important than his reputation. He rebuilt availability. Yes, he scored twice against Vasco da Gama. Yes, he answered critics publicly. But Ancelotti wasn't counting goals. He was counting appearances. In the 6 weeks leading up to Brazil's squad announcement, Neymar played in 9 of Santos' final 12 matches. For most players, that's ordinary. For Neymar, after nearly 2.5 years of injuries, setbacks, surgeries, and disappointment, it was extraordinary. Because availability was the only question Carlo Ancelotti had ever asked. And finally, Neymar had an answer. When Ancelotti explained, so why did Carlo Ancelotti take the risk? The answer, according to some of football's biggest names, is simple. Brazil doesn't have another player like Neymar. That was the argument made by Ronaldo Nazário himself. And he wasn't alone. Kylian Mbappé, who spent years alongside Neymar at Paris Saint-Germain, openly admitted that he couldn't imagine a World Cup without him. Because players who have shared a dressing room with Neymar understand something statistics often fail to capture. Some players don't just play football. They change it. But belief alone wasn't enough. Because Neymar's inclusion came with a very real cost. To make room for him, Carlo Ancelotti left out João Pedro, the Chelsea striker coming off one of the strongest seasons of his career in the Premier League. The exact type of player who normally walks into a World Cup squad. Young, in form, healthy, productive. And yet, when the final decision came, Ancelotti chose Neymar. In fact, during the press conference, he almost sounded apologetic. He admitted João Pedro deserved consideration. Then he selected Neymar anyway. That's the real price of decisions like this. Imagine doing everything right for an entire season. Scoring goals, staying fit, checking every box, and then losing your place to a player whose greatest achievements happened years ago. If you're João Pedro, that hurts. And Carlo Ancelotti knew exactly what he was doing. Now, let's be honest. There is a serious argument against this decision. Neymar scored only 4 league goals. His body has required multiple surgeries in recent years. The 2026 World Cup will be played across North America, with enormous travel distances, summer heat, and an unforgiving tournament schedule. For a 34-year-old player with a long injury history, it might be the most physically demanding World Cup ever staged. And every squad position given to a veteran based on potential is a position a younger player never gets. That's a legitimate criticism. But every criticism depends on one assumption: that Neymar has been selected to carry Brazil. Carlo Ancelotti has already told us that's not the plan. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, a penalty. He's not betting on Neymar the superstar. He's betting on